Well, I would want to make that distinction because, unlike some folks, I am not against immigration per se. And I think there are objective reasons. There are objective reasons why it's kind of hypocritical anyway for Americans to be against immigration, since so many folks here are the result of immigration. Now, some people might say that I'd have a better excuse than any to be against immigration, since my ancestors immigrated here by force, as it were. But nonetheless, I think you look at the reality, and all of us, many of us anyway, came from somewhere else. They tell me that even Native Americans, I'm part Cherokee, long way back, and Native Americans, they tell me, if you go back far enough, even Native Americans crossed the Bering Strait over from Asia. You're going back pretty far then, though. So in a certain sense, the whole New World populated by immigrants from somewhere else. And I don't believe we should insult the truth of that heritage by pretending that it's done us some harm. It hasn't. It is a great asset if we manage it responsibly. It still gives us access to things that increase the talent, but also, I think, increase the value that we place even on our own institutions. Because it doesn't at all hurt that in every generation we get an influx of folks coming from parts of the world with less freedom into a part of the world with more, who walk the world for a few years and just say, I love this place. That's a good thing. It reminds those of us who might take it for granted of the value of what we've got. So, I'm not against immigration per se, but I do believe it has to be carefully regulated so that it does not damage our quality of life, destroy our infrastructure. I think we are, in a way, the urban area of the world. And if you look at a lot of the countries around the world, like Mexico and India, places like this, urban areas become a magnet for people from the less developed rural areas. And they come in such large numbers that the infrastructure of the cities break down and they can't handle it. We don't want America to become a large-scale version of that breakdown. And so we've got to be responsible. We've got to act on behalf of the great trust which I believe we have for humanity in terms of the welfare of this country. So you limit immigration through the law, and then, and here's the key part, and I know this is hard, so brace yourselves. This is a very unusual suggestion I'm going to make. It'll come hard. You will think that I'm really radical and wonder how it is that I could ever hope to do anything in politics. But I think that the key to dealing with our immigration challenge is to enforce the law. Now, I know, see, you're ready to throw brickbats at me. No, consider that the laws are on the books. But we have so many folks who want us to act as if they don't exist. And we should not respect the distinction between illegal and legal immigration. We must. And if we don't, then we ourselves are undermining the laws. They become, not even empty words. They become worse than that. And so we've got to enforce the law. That requires cooperation from state and local government, and it requires cooperation from private business. It also requires a willingness to react firmly to those levels of government and those businesses that violate the law. That's what enforcing the law is all about. Now, in many areas of this country, you have people who are winking and conniving at illegal immigration because somebody who's powerful in their political scene or in their economic scene is pulling the strings. If it's bad for the country, then we're going to have leaders at the national level with the integrity to enforce national responsibility, even in the face of those state and local political obstacles. In this area, it is the responsibility of the federal government. See, we have a federal government that's been willing to take on all kinds of responsibilities they shouldn't have. They want to take over education. They want to dictate law enforcement and this and that. Not their job. But the defense of this country and the integrity of its borders is the job of the federal government, and they ought to do it with courage and responsibility. Having said that, though, I hope that everyone will realize it's part of the reason that I believe in conducting politics the way I do. Some people tell me that it may never succeed to just go out there, say what you think is right, and try to get enough people on your side to make it happen. But if you do it that way, and people are very clear about exactly what you stand for, then if you ever do get elected, nobody will be unclear about what's coming. And in the area of immigration, if Alan Keyes ever gets elected to the White House, state and local governments can expect to find a federal government that will be very hard about the business of looking you in the eye and saying not a penny comes from us if you won't cooperate in enforcing the integrity of our borders. And I'll be clear and strict about it. It's time we stop paying lip service. I think we should also encourage, and this would be done at the state level through the political coalition we represented, but encourage at the state level and encourage in a proper form at the national level the implementation of the ideas that were in Proposition 187. I know there are people who somehow like to argue that if you're in favor of something like that, where you're essentially saying to illegal immigrants, we are not going to treat you as if you're legal immigrants. We're certainly not going to treat you as citizens. And they like to say, well, that's being discriminatory, that's awful, that's bigoted. What is going on in this country? Have we lost our minds? We put laws on the books, and then when people break the law, we consider ourselves wicked folks because we enforce it? I was particularly struck by this during the Proposition 187 debate some years ago, because the Mexican government, they have a representative in California, and he was speaking out about how terrible this was, because it was somehow going to be discriminatory against folks coming over from Mexico. See, unfortunately for somebody like myself, having worked in the international arena, and at one time having done a fair amount of work in this very area, I knew that if you want to find a government that's hard as nails when it comes to the question of immigration into its country, the status of aliens, most people who actually are legal aliens in Mexico have only very limited and truncated rights in terms of what they can do, contracts they can enter into, and so forth and so on. If you're illegal, they don't even take the time of day to explain it to you. They just put your butt on the latest thing out of town and off you go. And no apologies accepted. No long administrative tribunals, no rights, nothing else. And I'm watching as the representative of this government, tough as nails in enforcing its own law, dares to get on a high horse and tell us that we can't take rudimentary steps to enforce our own. This is absurd. We don't have to feel badly about it. We are, in fact, meeting our responsibility to people all over the world who come to this country with a sense of hope by not making stupid mistakes that will destroy the reality of that hope. It's our stewardship responsibility to do this in the right way.